Lights, camera, action. Good morning, guys. My name's Nate, and I got a call from Tyler this morning, and he needed me to do a message, so I'm just kidding. No, I actually had this time to prepare. This was planned months ago, but just really excited to be here and to talk about what we're talking about. This year, 2026, we're going to be leaning into the culture statement, moving closer to God moves us closer to people. That's the statement that we're going to be leaning into. We always lean into one of our culture statements, and this one is a really interesting one because there's two things happening here. There's the moving closer to God and there's moving closer to people, and it's not two separate things. It really is two things that are connected and two things that happen at the same time and really depend on each other in order to do it well. But today, and for this series that we're doing, we're going to do a series on worship. And the first part of that statement, moving closer to God, that's worship. Worship is stepping into his presence, and what we'll talk about, like definitions and kind of what that means. But I'm excited to talk about it because I've been leading worship for about 30 years now. I started whenever I know you're saying, I was 6. So no, I was 15 whenever I started leading worship. I was 15. Why did I get a woo? Here's the thing. Okay. I'm just gonna be transparent. You guys know me. Here's the deal. Growing up, middle school, I was always artsy. I never liked any subjects in school except for the creative arts. So I was an artist. I drew. I carried on this sketch pad in middle school. But it clicked with me one day. I'll meet more girls if I play guitar than if I draw. Because walking up to a girl saying, "Hey, can I sketch you?" is sketchy. It's creepy. I'm not gonna lie. There's just no getting around it. But you pull out your guitar and you start playing. You don't even have to say anything. Girls just start walking up and hanging out. And so here's the thing. I say that to say, you guys woohoo, I was 15. Like, honestly, that was a youth pastor taking something that I did selfishly and seeing something that I didn't see. And he empowered me and he set me up. His name is Richard. I owe a lot to him through just my journey of learning about Jesus and about being a Christ follower, but also worship as well. But I've been doing it for a long time. And to be frank, whenever I was a kid, I didn't enjoy worship. I remember having the distinct thought and conversation in my head when I was in church. Like I said, I would always draw. I would get bored. I wasn't really into it. And my parents were always in ministry, and we always went to different types of churches. We were never one specific kind of, denomination, one specific kind of style. So it was all different kinds of styles. But but I remember sitting in church a lot, and I remember being really bored. I remember people saying, "One day when we get to heaven, we get to do this forever." And I was like, "We're going to do this forever?" Like, I didn't want to go to heaven. Like, I really didn't. I didn't want to go. I'm like, this is not fun. Like this, I'm like trying to make it through these 30 minutes of this person talking about stuff. I don't know what he's talking about and singing these songs. I don't know what they're doing. And I'm like, this is going to be forever. I dreaded it. I really did. And there was this moment. And I'm going to go through it. And please know, I love worship. I've devoted the majority of my life to pursuing it. I've not done it full time since I was 15. I've been in ministry for 25 plus years, and it's been youth ministry and Next Steps ministry and young adult. It's been all stuff, but all throughout it, from the beginning, worship has been a part of it. And I remember. So I have a lot of stories. God's taken me on a journey, and I'm going to share some stories and things I feel like God has just kind of spoken to me about. We're going to land it not just with my experience, but we're going to land it in Scripture because that's where it needs to land, where it needs to come from. But please know this. I'm not coming from a place of I have arrived and I know it. I'm coming from a place of this is what God has been working through me and kind of teaching me, and he is still teaching me, and I'm still learning. But this kind of sets up a conversation. But I have a whole lot of stories because whenever Tyler and I were talking about 2026, we started talking about messages for 2026. We're talking about how do we start framing this culture statement? How do we start using that as a filter for ways to do some series? We first landed on, let's start with worship. And I started sharing with him some stories. These are some things that I just really think about. When I think about worship, these are some like core memories I have of worship, of when God kind of took me from one place and moved me to another. And he's like, man, how about you how about you do that first message? How about you take that? So I did, and then he scheduled a vacation and left. In all seriousness, the Jagans have like multiple birthdays, anniversary, engagement, like celebration. They have like all these things happening, so they're away celebrating that, and I really hope they're having an awesome time. I'm glad they're able to get away. I think Mabel's goal is to see snow. They went up to, I think Carolinas, Tennessee, I'm not sure, but somewhere up in the Appalachian Mountains. And I'm hoping that she gets her wish and she sees snow. Stories of worship. I remember this shift whenever I stopped disliking it. I mean, I don't know if it was ever a hate, but I did not enjoy worship. I did not enjoy church. It was boring to me. It was really boring to me. But I remember a shift. I was in middle school, 6th grade. Pretty new in 6th grade, and the youth group that I was a part of was kind of larger, and we would do fall retreats every year, and it was just this quick weekend getaway, Friday, Saturday, come back Sunday kind of a deal, and we would go, and they would go up to the mountains. And I remember we would go to this place. I don't remember the location specifically, the state, whatever, but it was up in the mountains. And we would go, we would arrive, and we would always get there at night. We'd always go in 15-passenger vans, and we would unload, and we would walk from where we'd unload. The first thing we'd do, we'd walk down this gravel road, and it felt like it was forever. And we would go to this place, this open air kind of just worship area, covered like little sanctuary chapel, but it was all open air. But it was on the side of this lookout. And at night, you couldn't really see it right away. You had to kind of get there, turn the lights out, and get settled. And then once you settled and kind of let your eyes adjust, you could see how vast the lookout was. And you could see some lights out in the distance. You could see some stars. You couldn't really see the mountains yet, but you could see just space. And it was just, in fact, I don't know if it was officially called this, but my youth group called that spot specifically, they called it Pretty Place. Like that's what it was called. And I still remember that to this day. We would go to Pretty Place, and that was just what it was. And I remember distinctly going there. And this older guy would pull out the guitar and start singing, and it was just him on guitar and me and my youth group, and he would sing songs, As the Deer Panteth for the Water. I know Catherine Granger's favorite song. She absolutely loves that song. She's hoping to lead it very soon. I'm going to work on that. As the deer, change my heart, oh God, I love you, Lord. More love, more power. These songs like early 90s, just not contemporary, not really yet. Contemporary, I guess, in the sense that it wasn't a hymn, but something happened in that moment. I just remember something, just a switch flipping in me, and it was something that it stirred something in me. And there's this mystical part of worship. I don't know if you've ever experienced it or not. Whenever you have been together with people singing a song, directing it towards your Father, and it's just like there's this thing that happens inside of you that is just not normal, it's not usual. It's just you feel close, you feel peace, you feel calm. I felt that mystical, that kind of hard to describe experience, and it turned my perspective a little bit. I started to think, okay, maybe heaven won't be so bad. This is kind of like what heaven is like. Maybe it won't be so bad, kind of a thing. But I remember that moment. That was a moment that really switched for me. Another moment that happened for me, I was in high school, and this was late 1900s. I just want to say that. It was 96, 97, but it was, had appreciation for worship. That was growing, but then there was this other part of me that loved music, but there was really no crossover between the worship and the music. I had it very, very separated. It was late 90s, so I was growing up in the best music, genre known to man, which is late 90s grunge. It was absolutely, I thought I was Kurt Cobain. I really did. I had long hair, barely washed it. I had a chain wallet. I looked awesome. I looked really cool. I looked awesome. I promise you. I know what you're picturing. It's better than that. It's better than that. But there is this separation of, like, I had this music I loved, and there's also worship. But I remember going to a Third Day concert. It was during their Bus album, so it was around 96, and loved Third Day. But again, they were rock and roll. They were a different music from worship. But I remember going there, and another switch was flipped. Another shift was made whenever I was there. It was downtown Atlanta. It was in the Centennial Park, so it was an outdoor deal. It was during the day. There was no like lights or fogs or anything, but it was just them on stage playing. And I know Third Day's been around a long time, but they were one of the first bands that turned like concert moments to like, they would say, let's have church, y'all. Like he would say that, Magpie would say that. And they would just start having worship in the middle of their concert. And they started playing the song, Agnus Dei. And I'd heard the song before many, many, many times. Michael W. Smith covered it. It was, a very known song. But it was separate from this other music that I really liked. But then Third Day started playing it. And they had their electric guitars. And it would start out and it was, Alleluia. And it was really soft. I was like, okay, this is familiar. Alleluia, for the Lord God Almighty reigns. And then it's going. And they would get to the chorus part. And they played it so loud and so heavy. Holy, like electric guitars completely like letting loose. And something happened. I'm like, two things started to merge with me. I'm like, my love for worship and this thing that like is like this other music that also moves me and I love. This started to be like, God's cool with both of these. This is not just like, okay, I put on this hat and put on this hat. No, something hit me. I'm like, when I'm going down the street and I see somebody listening to music and they're like feeling it, they're like in their car, that nobody's watching. And they're just feeling them. I'm like, God created that. Something happened in that moment. Like God created music and humanity experiences this. And this is a common thing, no matter what culture that you place yourself in. Music is a common thing and it moves our soul. And whenever people get moved by rock, by screamo, by rap, by country, by all this stuff, it may not feel like a holy thing that they're moving to, but it's something that God created in them. God created this connection to music. And it just so I started in my head, I'm like, okay, I can do both of these at the same time. I can merge these things. And then worship music kind of changed for me after that. It was different, but it didn't have to be separate. I also remember this other moment, this shifting moment, and this is more whenever I was a young adult, but I remember watching a video of Michael Jackson at a concert. I've never been to a concert, never seen him in a concert, but it was a video, and the video, it was absolutely, it's just so interesting to me. It was so eye-opening to me because I watched this video and it was the start of his concert. It was in this arena, right? Because it's Michael Jackson. It's this huge arena. It's completely packed out. But the crowd is already screaming before he's even seen, right? There's like energy, electric. They're already screaming. And he appears, I think out of a door out of the stage, and nothing is happening. No music is playing, but he's standing there on stage just like this. And the place goes crazy for about 7 minutes. Nothing else happens. And they're just going crazy, and he's just standing there like this. And he's theatrical. He knows what's happening. He's feeding into that. This is not about hating on Michael Jackson, but it's a comment on humanity. Guys, we know how to worship. We don't have to be a churchgoer, a believer. We don't have to have any kind of religious thing in us, belief, whatever. We are made to worship. You know what worship is? The word worship comes from this Old English word worthsipe, which is worthship. It's talking about recognizing something's worth, recognizing its worth, and then elevating it. Giving it worth, recognizing the worth. Guys, we as humans know how to do that because all these people go to this concert and it's misdirected, obviously. Michael Jackson is nobody's savior. He's nowhere near that level. Nobody is, by the way. But this arena full of 80,000 people saw this person. They're like, this person is worth something, and we're going to give him worth, not for a minute, not for 2, but for 7 minutes. And he did nothing other than to stand there and receive it. It was not an indictment on him. It was a clue to me of humanity. We know how to do this. This is something inside of us. We don't have to learn how to worship. We know how to. It's innate. It's inside of us. It's ingrained in us. The question is, what are we going to direct that worth to? What are we going to elevate that worth to? I remember, this is a fun story for me because this just makes me laugh still to think about it. But I remember I was a youth pastor. I took my youth group to some conference. I can't remember what the conference was. It was a Christian conference, and we ended up getting seats. It was like this weekend thing, so you would like come and go, and it was first come, first serve, like general admission. We got there early one time, and we got on the floor near the stage, and it was fun, and there was all these different bands and speakers and all this stuff. But there's this moment where we're standing near the stage, and just people around, like I'm there, blocking everybody behind me, as I always do. My youth group's there, and there's this other youth group, this youth pastor, and I'm not going to do him justice. This is just, I wish you could see what I can see and hear what I could hear. But he's just there. We're on stage. We're watching it. And this certain song comes on. And he turns on to his youth group. I better see you guys worship. I better see your hands up because you know the song. Come on. Or else. And it was the weirdest thing to me. I'm like, what just happened? Like, or else what? Like, what are you going to do if they don't? But it was just this weird thing. Here's the deal. And then let me say this. So, being in worship for as long, like being in this arena, guys. I've been a youth pastor. I've taken 80 high schoolers to New York City for a mission trip. That's less stressful than being a worship pastor. I'm not lying, guys. Worship is sacred. All of us in this room, and if I've learned, one thing that I've learned is that whenever people come to me with some kind of suggestion or criticism or idea or why don't you, I've learned that it's coming from a place of really personal experience, because worship is personal. There is a moment, every single person that's come to me that's complained about something or has requested something or wants to do something differently, I've learned to look at that as there was a time in their life when they felt something, that mystical magic that I was talking to you about, that peace, that connection, that closeness to God. They felt that, and now they're trying to feel that again. They want to get back to that. So I have so much compassion, and I feel like I want to have compassion on this guy, even though he's kind of a bonehead, demanding that his youth group responds. It's coming from a place of wanting them to experience something, and maybe he's seen them experience something, and he wants to recreate that. But guys, worship is personal. And it's so different for every single person. And here's why it's hard for me as a worship pastor, because what if one Sunday, I pick out 4 songs that everybody likes? What if? What are the odds of that? Like, pretty astronomical. Like it won't happen. But what if I picked out the right songs in the right keys so everybody's comfortable singing? What if I picked out the right versions? What if I had, I got the sound guys to do the right volume that wasn't too offensive and was loud enough to feel it? What if I got a Sunday to where everybody was happy? What if that happened? Like, okay, so it can't, but what if it did? What if it did? Guess what happens the next Sunday? I can't do those songs again, because I can't keep doing the same songs, because you're going to come to me and complain. I'm getting tired of those songs. And then if I start doing songs that are too new, well, why don't you do the songs that we already know? And if I do the songs that we already know, then you say, then why don't you do the songs that are new? And everybody has a different idea of what the song should be. Here's the deal. I've learned a long time ago, I cannot make y'all happy. So that's not my job. My job as worship pastor is not to make you happy. It's not my job. My job is to try to create spaces where you can encounter God. And here's the deal. I learned this amazing kind of light bulb moment at a church that I went to. I served in St. Pete a while back. I was a worship pastor there, and I was hired there because the church, I didn't know the pastor. It was a friend of a friend connection kind of a thing, but it was a church. It was a legacy church in St. Petersburg, Florida, that was on the verge of closing their doors. It was an older congregation. They knew that if they didn't change something, that literally the church would die and that they would close. In fact, they had several meetings where they had meetings of, do we close the doors or do we continue? And one of these meetings said, okay, well, let's just give it one more shot. Let's hire somebody new and let's just give it a shot. So they hired this guy. He brought me in. And here's the deal. He hired me to help steer the ship and to help change culture. I was there for 3 years, and I learned more in those 3 years than probably I have in the 30 that I've been a part of other places, because changing culture is hard. Even if people say, I know I need to change is still hard. So I stepped into this place, and this was the environment that I stepped into. I am not classically trained. I'm not this choir director. I am this guy I used to be Kurt Cobain, right? Like that's who I used to be. So like I'm just this guy that knows how to play music, and I can put a band together. So I was hired to help change culture. I stepped into this place where it was a church that was struggling and they needed to change. The history of that church was they had, not too long before that, they had two services. They had a traditional and they had a contemporary. You guys remember, anybody familiar with the term worship wars? Anybody familiar with that? I was a worship pastor through those periods. There was a time when the church was fighting about what's right and what's not right as far as style of worship. And I went into this place within me, a specific style in this church. But it was very traditional people. But one time they had this contemporary service, and they were doing well as a church. It was growing, it was doing well, and everything that a traditional person would fear about a contemporary service happened in that service. There was a team that treated it like it was a performance. They were just showing up to perform. It was not authentic. There was infidelity in the group. There was drug use. It was absolutely a train wreck of a group of people trying to do this thing. And whenever everything imploded, the pastor that was there just severed it and said, no, this is not good. It's completely severed it. I don't know that it was communicated well. It wasn't walked out well, because every single, something had to happen for sure. That could not continue. But what happened from the severing of that and saying, no, we're not doing this, contemporary is done, we are only doing traditional, every single young family left the church. All the kids, all the young families, and what was left was this group of older people who, if you said the word contemporary, they wanted to throw up. Enter Kurt Cobain. That's what I stepped into. I stepped into this, I'm a contemporary guy, and I stepped into this church who said, we recognize that if we keep doing what we're doing, we won't be here. So we need to change. But we don't like you. And we don't like what you do because we know where that leads. So I step in, and the first Sunday night I'm there, I'm like leading songs from guitar, and it's just really hard. They're very stoic. But here's the deal. Over 3 years, I grew some amazing relationships and met some amazing people, and God did some amazing things in my life, and I helped with this pastor change culture. We moved from one thing to another, shifted not from traditional to contemporary, but we switched from traditional to a very, very, very well done blended gathering. But it took a lot of work to get to that place. But something that happened, and like I said, worship wars, that was a real thing. People fighting about styles. And I recognize one day, my generation, we're going to get older and we're going to be like, where's the Phil Wickham music? Because whatever new style is going to come out, I'm not going to connect with, I'm not going to like, and I'm going to be grumpy about. And they're going to create this small space so that we can have our Brandon Lake and our Phil Wickham, and we can have all this stuff over here so they can appease us, because we're the ones that are tithing. We're the ones that are giving to the church and helping ministry continue. And all these new people that listen to whatever techno, whatever is going to, I don't know, techno polka. I don't know what the next style is going to be, the rave of the church, but whatever it is, I'm not going to connect. So I'm through that experience. I was trying to have a lot of empathy and a lot of patience, because I was recognizing there are a group of people who are fighting for this thing that was really personal and that was real, a connection that they had with God, and they wanted to know how to navigate that, and they were trying to find that. But I had this amazing interaction with this woman. This was back when Redmond's song "Blessed Be Your Name" was big. Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful. I sang that. Now it would be considered more like traditional, like now, but it was a contemporary song then. And I led it, and I kept leading it, and kept leading it, and kept leading it. And then, a year and a half, a couple years later, this really, really, really godly woman came up to me. Her name was Helen. She came up to me and she said, "Nate, I want you to know that whenever you started to play a while back, Blessed Be Your Name, I hated that song." She's like, It's a what was the term that they used? 24/7, 24 words said seven, like sung 7 times, something like. There was some kind of term that they gave to contemporary music. Like, she discounted it. She just like, I hated that song. She's like, today you played it, and she's like, I worshiped through it with tears because I recognized that no matter what season I'm in, I can bless him, and it's not about how I feel. So she shared with me this moment, this sincere moment of worshiping through the song, and it clicked with me. Something went off. It wasn't about style, it was about what's familiar. That's the issue. The issue is not style. The issue is familiar. Because I have talked to some amazing godly people who are used to contemporary and fall in love with hymns. It's because they become familiar with it. This stuff that we do, the style, the music, the songs was never supposed to be the thing. The thing was always supposed to be God and Jesus. That was supposed to be the thing. These are things that we use to encounter his presence, to step into his presence. And if we give, and what she did so beautifully was she gave, whether she meant to or not, but she did. She gave that song time to be familiar, and it became a tool that she could use to worship her God the same way that she worshiped through How Great Thou Art and Great Is Thy Faithfulness. I Need Thee Every Hour. All the songs that she knew growing up that were familiar. She didn't have to think about the timing or the words or the melody. She didn't have to think about it. She just sang it because it was familiar. She was able to do this to this song, and it just really, something clicked with me. It's about what's familiar. There was this, before I skip over this one story, I kind of skipped one. There was, going back to when I was kind of later in high school, there was this really sweet moment that a really wise worship, he was a music minister. He wasn't a worship, they were called music ministers. He directed the choir. He was an incredible musician. His name was Bill, and he was the music minister at the church that I was at. And just funny comparison, there's 2 churches at middle school. My parents were serving in different capacities at a church called Mount Paran in Atlanta. It was a Church of God, so it was a charismatic church. So it was on the charismatic side, and then we went from there to we're going to a Southern Baptist church that was closer to us, and I cannot tell you the difference. Went from some pretty expressive worship to very, very stoic worship, and it was just such a contrast. But I'm grateful that my parents didn't lock us into a specific denomination. They really opened my eyes to just people, different types of people, different styles, just seeking God and trying to figure out how to connect with him. But at that church, this music minister, Bill, did this really cool thing. I'm not sure how the conversation started. I'm not sure how it came about, but there was a Sunday night where he allowed an individual, a dad of one of my friends in the youth group, sing a solo, and he did it a cappella. And he was absolutely horrible. I mean, like could not carry a tune, could not do pitch, could not pronunciate well. It was absolutely, like, technically horrible. But something really strange happened inside of me. I don't know if it was just God saying, just look at him differently, listen to it differently. But I think for a moment, God allowed me to hear his heart, not his voice. Because he was singing this song. I can't even tell you what song it was, but he was singing this song through sobs and through tears. And I had this thought in my head that what if right now, in our state of imperfection, our state of thinking that we have to be a certain way and it has to be perfect and it has to be this and that, what if we had a glimpse of heaven right now, what if we thought that everybody was singing out of tune because we're getting it wrong? And the reality is, whenever we step into heaven and when faith becomes sight, we don't just hear, but we actually are able to recognize the heart and the passion behind it. And what if beauty is different and beauty changes and it's something different? What if in our imperfect state, we heard that and we would think it was bad, but when we get there, we recognize, because there was this moment where my heart was just like, it was lifted by this guy who could not carry a tune, but it was because his heart was so pure. And he was just worshiping his Father. And it was such a beautiful moment. And that moment, God told me, I want your heart. I don't want any kind of show. He told me that. And I forgot it. And then he would remind me, and I forgot it. And he would remind me, and I would forget it again. But it was a moment. It was definitely one of those core moments. A more recent story is a story of me and my family and my wife, and a lot of you have walked with us through this. But it's a recent story of me, approaching 30 years of leading worship, still trying to figure stuff out and still learning stuff and still trying to learn what all of this means. My wife and I went through 3 years of incredible hurt, incredible pain. My wife almost died from falling off the roof, and watched her walk through healing, and she broke her femur, and it was a really hard season. Also walked through miscarriages and walked through just really difficult seasons where, guys, just to be honest, I was up here and there were some people that were close in my life that knew stories, that knew what was happening, but on a large scale, nobody really knew. But I was up here singing songs about, I trust in God. I trust in God, my Savior, the one. I was singing the song, and inside I was thinking, God, can I trust you? Because all I feel right now is hurt. And honestly, I felt anger. I felt legit anger, and I've never really felt that towards God throughout my life. I felt anger. I'm like, God, why? Why is this happening? Why does it have to be so hard? Why does this pain have to exist? Why do we have to go through this? Why do I have to watch my wife suffer through this? Why? And I felt legit anger, and I felt so much pain. But through it, God continued to call me to trust him. And songs that say this, you've heard me say the phrase, if it's not good, then it means he's not done. That's like, through this season of trying to worship him and trust him, that phrase became a real phrase to me. It became something that I had to hold on to, because it's not a question of whether he loves us or whether he wants the best for us. The question is, how much is it going to hurt getting to that best? Like, what kind of pain are we going to experience through that? And I had to learn the lesson that it's my job, in the bad and in the good, to bless his name. In the good times and the bad times. Paul says that I've learned to be content with him in much and in plenty and with little. I've learned to be satisfied in him no matter what. I can do all things through Christ. It's not because of my strength, it's because of Christ's strength in me. There's this really hard reality of, just because you are his child does not mean that you are protected from pain and from hurt. The truth is, we still experience that. But God uses that in a beautiful way, and it doesn't take away the fact that he is faithful and that he can be trusted and that he's good. And I learned a really hard lesson to worship him through anger, despite anger. And I learned that he's okay with it. He's okay with it. He can handle it. He's big enough. He's secure enough. He's not shaken by this little puny little guy who thought he was Kurt Cobain being mad at him. It doesn't shake his identity. It doesn't change him. He's okay with it. He can handle it. So I learned to be okay with it as well, and to just process through that and express that. And I worship through it. And there were some times that y'all may not have known where the emotions came from, but there was a season where I couldn't hold it together on stage worshiping. And it wasn't because I was holy, it was because I was recognizing that I was weak and that I need to trust him, I need to worship him through all of it. Through all of it. There's this amazing passage in Amos 5 that I've known for a while, but has continued to rock me and continued to shape me and continue to drive where this morning needs to go. And I know there's been a lot of stories, a lot of God kind of pulling around, but it's all going to one place. Amos 5:21, it says this: I hate all your show and pretense, the hypocrisy of your religious festivals and solemn assemblies. I will not accept your burnt offerings and grain offerings. I won't even notice all your choice peace offerings. Away with your noisy hymns of praise. I will not listen to the music of your harps. Instead, I want to see a mighty flood of justice, an endless river of righteous living. Worship. Every single time somebody comes on this team, I ask the question, what is worship to you? It's not because I'm trying to test them. I just want to have a conversation, want to know where they are and what has been their journey. And today has been about, whether you've known it or not, you asking the question, Nate, what is worship to you? What is worship to you? Worship to me, it's an authentic expression, recognizing who God is and who we are, and then stepping into and celebrating that difference. Because here's the deal. All throughout Scripture, we see people encountering God, prophets encountering him, shepherds encountering him, fishermen. Like, we see people encountering God, the glory of God. And at once, the consistent thing that happens is they recognize who they're in front of, and they recognize who they are. And they're like, they step back. They're afraid. Do you see that pattern? They recognize there is this holy God. Isaiah said, woe is me. I am a man of unclean lips. I can't be near you. Woe is me. He steps away. That's a reactionary response. You step in the presence of God and you recognize who he is and who we are, and we step back. But worship is not allowing the space to be there. Worship is celebrating the difference, because here's the deal. Jesus came to bridge that difference, to make it possible for us to be in his presence. God calls us to approach his throne of grace with confidence, where we can receive strength and grace and peace. We can receive all the things that we need, but we approach it through grace, not by merit, not by anything that we do, not by any works. And in that in-between is a moment of authenticity. Here's the deal. This passage is so amazing to me. I won't accept your burnt offerings. Away with your noisy hymns of praise. He's like, this was a people who were doing things. They were doing things. They were doing the festivals and the offerings, and they were doing all the things. They were singing the songs. They were showing up and they were doing it, but they weren't in it. Their hearts weren't there. And God was saying, stop. I don't want it. I don't want to hear fake. I don't want to hear pretense. I don't want to hear if it's not really you. If you're angry with me, then I want to hear your anger. If you're hurt, then I want to hear your hurt. If you're happy, if you're joyful, if you're whatever, I want to hear that and to experience that. I want you to bring that, and I want you in a real, in an authentic way. I don't want you to treat, I don't want you to exercise injustice and then come here and then just go through the motions. I don't want you to act like something else. I lived a life, so much of my life, where there was separate church and then me, and then God's been working through me to let me know that there's no separate. It is just, God's just given me life, and he wants to use all of it to draw me closer to him, to teach me how to know more about him and to know more about how he loves me and loves this world. All of life. He doesn't want us to separate. He doesn't want us to be one thing out there as we're doing our job, saying whatever jokes we're saying, engaging in whatever activity we're doing. He doesn't want us to just do that and then come here and then put on a play, put on an act, put on a mask, and just do the things. He is saying, stop. Just stop. I don't want it. What I want is you, right where you are, as imperfect as you are, as flawed as you are, as broken as you are, as confused as you are. I want you in this moment. And our job is to step into his presence and then to respond. I grew up, like I said, in different environments, and I remember at the church when I was in middle school, it was more charismatic. I remember seeing people more expressive in worship, lift their hands and respond, and there was more of a physical activity in worship. And then obviously going to some other places, it was more stoic and it was more reserved. And there's absolutely zero judgment from me as far as how somebody's posture is during worship, because I can't see anybody's heart. In Psalms, it talks about worshiping with instruments, worshiping with shouts, worshiping with our hands. It also talks about worshiping in silence, because it's not about our posture, our physical posture. It's about our heart's posture. He wants you to worship him authentically in a real way. And my question to you is, have you experienced, when I first started talking about that kind of fuzzy, mystical, like peace feeling, have you experienced it? Have you felt that? One, If you haven't, I encourage you, it's possible that you haven't felt that because maybe you don't know him yet. You need to know him. You need to place your faith and your trust in him. And maybe you've already done that, but maybe you don't feel that, but maybe because there's something else that needs to be dealt with. Maybe there's some kind of separation. There's some activity here that needs to be repented of or dealt with or reconciled so that this relationship thing can be good. Or it's just, we've just become lazy and it's just become a normal thing and we just don't think about it as much anymore. It's just what we do. And what God is calling you to is so much deeper and better and richer. He's calling you to develop a heart of worship. And if we can do that, it doesn't matter how good the speaker is. It doesn't matter how good the band is, what song they're doing. It doesn't matter. I as a worship pastor, I won't feel the pressure of creating this perfect environment to help people get there if we all come just with our stuff saying, God, I want to meet you. I want to hear you. I want to give you everything that I have, and I don't want to hold anything back. I don't want to like parcel it. I don't want to be in boxes. I want to give you space for everything. I just want to experience you today. And if we start doing that as a faith family and start approaching him authentically, I think you would be shocked at what you would experience. If our hearts align with God, if our worship is where it needs to be, you'd be amazed at how many other things start to fall in line, how we treat our spouse. It's hard to step into the presence of God and to recognize who he is and who we are and what he's done to bridge that gap and then to go to somebody else and be judgmental. It's really hard to do that. It's really hard to step into that place of recognizing who he is and who we are and celebrate that difference and knowing the forgiveness that exists between us and him, and then to go to somewhere else and to say, they really wronged me, so boom, boundary, they're not forgiven. It's hard to not forgive whenever we recognize how we're forgiven. And that all happens in worship. That all happens in his presence. Today, my encouragement to you, to us and to me, is just to evaluate where we are and just to have an open and honest conversation with God. And just ask the question, God, am I where you want me to be? All of this that I've kind of walked you through has shaped who I am now as a worship pastor. You will never hear me in a service say, hey guys, raise your hands. I'll give space for it. I'll invite you to, but I'll never say do it. I'll never be that guy. You know this song. You better respond. I better see your hand. Or I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to threaten anybody or lay that kind of expectation on anybody. I sincerely want you to step into a place where you recognize who he is. And as you feel that moment of recognize who he is and who you are, and you feel that knee-jerk reaction to step away because holy cow, I can't be in his presence, recognize, no, that's where he wants you to be. That's what Jesus came to do. He came so that you can be in his presence. And then worship is this. We just respond to that in gratitude, in thankfulness, in appreciation. Because here's the deal. He is the one that is worthy of all of our praise. He is the one that deserves worth. He is the one, nobody else. And if you have ever thought in your head, is it worth? If you ever measured your offering thinking, I feel like I should raise my hand, but I don't want to look weird, so I'm not. If you've ever gone through anything like that where you're measuring the cost, let me say just real quickly, if you have ever measured that, then you haven't seen his worth. Because if you understand his worth, then you respond. You don't care about what people think. You don't care about what people say. You just, with your Father, you recognize who he is, who you are, and what he's done to allow you to be in his presence, and you respond authentically. So my call is for us to start asking that question, God, am I where you want me to be? I have people come up to me all the time saying, hey, we just got to get people to be more energetic and more alive. Like, we're just not where we need to be. And I listen, and I understand where that's coming from. But so much better than me getting a people to a place, it's me praying and me praying and allowing space and just hoping that us as a faith family, we step into his presence, recognizing who he is, who we are, and we stay there and respond to that miracle. Because that'll change everything. I want that to be a real, authentic encounter. I don't want it to be me maneuvering it. I don't want to manufacture it. I don't want to create it. I want it to be something that you experience, because then it'll last. It'll be real. It'll be good. Because whenever I get hit by a bus and somebody else comes in, your worship won't change. It won't be dependent upon a personality. It'll be dependent upon the God who will never fail you and will never leave, and no bus can run over. He's calling you to step into his presence, and that's a miracle. Right now, we're going to step into a time of response, and response can look like so many ways, but I encourage you, no matter what you do, you are responding. If you sit in silence and just do nothing, you're responding with a no. That's fine. That's between you and the Lord. You can sit there and you can pray through what. You can ask that question, God, am I where you want me to be? Do I need to see you more so that I can respond more, like what's happening? But today is about moving closer to God. Later we'll talk about what that means as far as moving closer to people. Right now we're talking about worship. We're talking about moving closer to God. And today is about how do I do that in an authentic way. And you can sit there, you can stand, you can sit, you can reflect, you can pray. You can go to communion on either side of the room, and you, by yourself, with your friends or with family, you can remind yourself and remember what Jesus did to allow you to step into that place where we naturally, when we experience him, want to run from. He paid the price for us to be in his presence. He paid it. You can also respond through giving. That can be online. That can be through the baskets. But that's not a transaction. That's a, God, I don't want to hold this. I want to give you everything. I don't want to give you some and hold. I want to worship you through every single aspect of my life. And that's an act of worship. And I'm going to invite Jale up in a moment. And her and I are going to sing a song that we all know is very familiar. It's Heart of Worship. And it's just going to be us having a chance to step into his presence, and to recognize who we are, and to not run from that, but to step into it and respond to it in a real, genuine way. So I'm going to pray. When I say amen, I invite you to respond however you feel led. God, thank you so much for today. And God, I forgot to mention there'll be people on each side of this stage that can talk to us if we need prayer, if we want to process things, or if we want to pray for things, we want to lift things, want somebody to help us to lift something up. God, I encourage us to say out loud what you're pressing on our heart right now. So that's another way to respond. But right now, as we step into this moment, we want to do it without a mask, without a pretense, without anything. We just want to respond to you because you have been so good, so faithful, and it's such an honor and a privilege to be able to worship you, to be able to be in your presence. So help us right now to do that, to step into that place and to respond to you. We ask this in your awesome name. Amen.